Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Nearly all frontline RCMP officers across the province are now outfitted with body-worn cameras. The change started last November, and today, for the first time, Mounties are releasing snippets of some of that footage. But the cameras aren't without their critics. The CBC's Matt Humphrey has more.
Look at this right here. Body cam.
Manitoba RCMP say this is the first body cam footage to be shared publicly in Canada.
Hello! We're here to help!
A short, heavily edited video of interactions captured since the cameras came into use last November. The first officers to get them were in Steinbach. Mounties say now 98% of their frontline members are wearing them. Corporal Janelle Hewlin says the blinking camera on her chest was a game changer while assigned to Shamattawa.
It's immediately noticeable to the person that I'm speaking to upon arrival. It has changed their behavior in multiple ways. It's been good and very accepted among the community.
The cameras cost $3,000 each and are being worn by nearly 650 officers. Mounties say officers turn on their own cameras, don't share cameras, and don't control what happens with the footage.
There is a capacity to delete videos. There are things we record that we don't necessarily want out for security reasons. And then someone like me or the detachment commander, that level of supervisor, are the only ones who can actually action that deletion request.
Manitoba authorities say the footage over the past year has been used to gather nearly 200,000 pieces of evidence. But Brandon University sociologist Christopher Schneider is critical, saying any footage used in court is never objective.
So you have different sides, basically trying to convince a judge, a jury, or both of what it is that they're seeing.
Schneider teaches about the cameras in his classes and recently wrote a book on the subject. He questions whether they truly deter violent crime or police misconduct.
If cameras stopped bad behavior, nobody would ever rob a bank ever again. No one would ever steal from a convenience store ever again. They do not. In the surveillance studies literature, we can pilot from here to the moon and back. Cameras don't deter bad behavior, but rather document bad behavior.
The camera system in Manitoba is expected to cost around $2 million a year to maintain. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A homeless encampment in Winnipeg's West Broadway neighborhood has been torn down. Bulldozers and city crews removed tents, items, and debris from Austin Park today. It comes after new city rules came into effect last week, banning encampments within 50 meters of schools, daycares, and playgrounds. The city previously said 15 people were living in the area next to the Granite Curling Club. Recently, outreach teams have been working to find them housing. Avoidable and preventable. That's how the Manitoba Nurses Union describes a woman dying after spending hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency rooms. We're now learning from the woman's daughter, who is a nurse, that she felt she had to make a choice between her duty and taking care of her mom. CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
Her mom was in the emergency room, but she felt she had no choice but to leave her and go to work. Michelle Price is a home care nurse. She worried for her patients and thought her mom was in good hands at the hospital.
She said, if I knew that if I didn't go to work that day, none of my clients in home care would get care. They would all be canceled. Or one of my colleagues who was already overworked and overscheduled would end up having to do extra.
Darlene Jackson spoke with Price and says her decision is one nurses make every day.
Nurses look after themselves or look after their patients and look after their colleagues before they look after themselves.
Price's mother, Genevieve, had a swollen wrist and arm. She was sent to Grace Hospital for more treatment after going to an illness and injury clinic. But after hours in the emergency room, the 82-year-old was transferred to St. Boniface Hospital in critical condition, where she later died.
Everyone did what they were supposed to. There just isn't enough everyone's to do everything.
Jackson says staffing and high wait times is a problem in every ER in the province. The union is demanding systemic change. Price told CBC she wants to see safer nurse-to-patient ratios, adding, as nurses, we feel like we're treading water and slowly drowning and being told help is on the way. We are losing hope that help will arrive. We have been making do with not enough for too long. In an early social media post, she said, "My mom deserved better. We deserve better. We need better. The system is broken, and so is my heart." There will be 2 investigations into what happened, a critical incident review and another more detailed review of the system. CBC asked about staffing and capacity at Grace Hospital when Genevieve Price came in for care. Winnipeg's health authority could not get back to us in time for air. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A St. Anne Collegiate student was viciously attacked in front of school with a group nearby watching, videoing, and no one stepped in. And according to police, another classmate has been arrested. Christopher Garreau reports from Steinbach.
A St. Anne Collegiate student was taken to hospital by ambulance Tuesday after a violent incident caught on camera. St. Anne police said they arrested another student on Wednesday. CBC has seen one of the videos shared online by students. The victim was confronted by a group of other teens in front of the school. He sat on a planter, not engaging. That's when one of the group can be seen grabbing him, throwing him to the ground. The victim was kicked in the ribs and punched before having his head repeatedly stomped on as he tried to cover the back of his head with his hands. The victim has since been released from hospital with minor injuries. The principal sent a letter to parents saying he made clear to everyone at the school that standing by and filming before getting help was not okay. He added, students need to look out for each other. Christopher Garreau, CBC News, Steinbach.
Staff and elected officials in the RM of Alexander are worried about their safety after shots were fired at a grader earlier this month. The mayor says there have been a string of incidents over the past year and a half, mostly concentrated in the Bird River area. He says a grader operator was driving near the fire hall earlier this month when he heard a bang. When he got out of the vehicle, he found a bullet hole in the panel. In the past, signs in the RM have been damaged, and a staff member had a target painted on the back of their car. A year after Winnipeg Transit Plus overhauled the way people book rides, the city says the new system is delivering major improvements, from shorter wait times to virtually eliminating missed trips. But advocates warn there's still more work to do. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
For years, riders who rely on Winnipeg Transit Plus have complained about long waits on the phone and often no ride at all. But a new report says a complete overhaul of the booking system, including artificial intelligence that schedules trips in real time, is making a dramatic difference. Average wait times have dropped from 19 minutes under the old system to under 4. The system has also virtually eliminated the problem of people not getting rides. There were more than 3,000 unaccommodated trips under the old system between 2022 and the launch of the new system last year. In the year since then, there were fewer than 40 unaccommodated trips. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes praised the results of the new AI system.
What the software allows us to do is take the calls, who's going to what area of the city, combine rides, pick up people from that area versus going all over. It's really made a dramatic improvement.
Riders can now book through an app or online, taking pressure off phone lines. Advocates say the new system has improved services, but they're also watching other changes Transit Plus is considering, including new eligibility rules and refreshing a fleet that riders say can be bumpy and uncomfortable.
The devil's always in the details. We're, hearing of, we're always hearing from our members of ways the systems can improve. So that's what we're going to continue to focus on.
Luke says the city is looking at expanding eligibility criteria, but those details have not been finalized. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
few flurries through parts of southern Manitoba throughout the afternoon hours. Today, looking at satellite and radar as expected. Another round of some lake effect flurries through parts of the southern Interlake on that Trans-Canada corridor between Winnipeg and Portage-la Prairie. That's as some of that cooler air, as I've been talking about, interacts with some of that relatively warm water on some of the open bodies of water, the southern basins of the large lakes. Some sunny breaks in the west and parts of northern Manitoba, but by and large, we were stuck under that cloud cover once again today. Temperature up to -3 in Winnipeg this afternoon, -4s, -5s into Westman, and you can start to see where some of that cooler air is starting to slowly sink a little bit further south in the minus double digits for daytime highs today for parts of northern Manitoba, -11 in Gillam, -10 in Thompson. Overnight tonight, some chance we'll see some flurries through the overnight hours, but we will start to see the winds backing off as we get through the night, and that will reduce that risk of some lake effect flurries as we get through the night. -11 first thing in the morning, a clearing sky, and we're looking at, I think, skies a bit brighter as we get into the day on Friday, but the trade-off is we start that downward slide to some cooler than seasonal temperatures. More on that when I come back.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
A judge is ruling over a contraband check stop and the reaction from First Nations. That's next. Manitoba's Premier and Opposition Leader exchanged insults again today during a question period so lacking in decorum, even the Speaker of the House apologized. CBC's Bartley Kivas watched what took place at the Manitoba Legislature and joins us now. So, Bartley, what went down?
Well, a lot of name-calling, taunting, and for lack of a better term, cheap shots. It started with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew calling the opposition the sniveling PCs, and PC leader Abi Khan calling Kinew a sniveling NDP clown, and then it got worse. Kinew compared jousting with Khan with wrestling with a pig, leading Khan to accuse the Premier of racism because Khan is Muslim and pigs are unclean in his faith. Now, Kinew then taunted Khan, telling him it's okay to cry for getting beaten so often during question period. Kinew pointed out that Khan never won the ultimate prize as a CFL player.
The only thing the member opposite has to offer is his claim to have played football for many, many years. But you know what? In spite of those many years, I have exactly as many Grey Cups as he does.
Khan, in turn, cited a police report at the time that Kinew made racist statements and was charged with assaulting a taxi driver well before the Premier entered public life.
I'll ask the Premier, does the Premier hate taxi drivers? Does he hate Punjabis? Member's time has expired.
So, Bartley, what did the Speaker do about all of this?
Well, he too had to apologize during an exchange between Kinew and PC MLA Rick Rauchuk over the blood vein hunting blockade. Kinew called the PCs a party of latte-sipping tofu eaters, and Rauchuk called the Premier Pinocchio. That led Speaker Tom Lindsay to caution Rauchuk for effectively calling the Premier a liar. Lindsay said Rauchuk wasn't being too clever, and then the Speaker later apologized.
So why was it all so nasty today?
PC leader Abi Khan says he was tired of playing nice with the NDP, and the NDP said they're responding in kind.
Premier is not answering any questions. We have to change our strategy, and our strategy today was to do as the NDP are doing.
Question period is opposition time. It's up to the opposition to set the tone, and I think we saw the tone that they wanted to set today.
This was the last question period of the week before the Christmas break, and perhaps then the tone will get a little bit more festive. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Bartley Kivas. Well, a judge has dismissed a hunting group's request for the court to stop a First Nations checkstop. The group says it prevents licensed moose hunters from crossing this fall. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us that story.
First Nations leaders celebrating a judge's decision to dismiss a motion from the Manitoba Wildlife Federation.
As Chief of Bloodvein River First Nation, I am deeply relieved and grateful that the justice system has acknowledged what we have long said. The checkpoint is about protecting the safety, health, and the dignity of our people.
The Wildlife Federation accused Bloodvein of setting up what they called an illegal blockade on the main road south of the community and asked the courts to stop them. The fishing and hunting advocacy group argued that 2 hunting parties weren't allowed to pass through in September. In his decision Thursday, the judge said licensed moose hunters would be inconvenienced but not wholly prevented from hunting. I am not convinced it would permanently prevent any licensed moose hunters from legally hunting elsewhere in Manitoba, Justice Theodore Bach said in court. Outside court, a lawyer for the Wildlife Federation says Thursday's decision didn't go their way, but they still count the lawsuit as a victory.
At the end of the day, the Manitoba Wildlife Federation was successful in the objective it had when it started this lawsuit, ensuring that licensed moose hunters have access to provincial lands north of the checkstop.
Kevin Toyne says Bloodvein has committed to that promise in court and in writing. Chris Heald with the Wildlife Federation is confident the First Nation will follow through when moose hunting resumes on Monday.
We expect the chief to keep her word.
Meanwhile, Chief Lisa Young says licensed hunters who enter the First Nations traditional lands will be followed in by conservation officers, land guardians, and safety officers to make sure they don't go in certain areas, including a cultural site for youth.
We're not discouraging them. We understand that we have to get through this hunting season for 2025.
She says the check stop was originally set up to stop alcohol and drugs from entering and has been successful. The court is still expected to hear another challenge related to disputed moose hunting areas. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Union for Rural Paramedics says new measures to keep some first responders is a step backwards. The province says new bursary and training programs can help keep emergency medical responders in rural areas. EMRs provide basic services like transportation for stable patients, but they can't diagnose illnesses or injuries the way paramedics can.
You need 2 fully trained paramedics to handle most emergency calls. EMRs can be trained much more quickly than paramedics, but they can't do a whole lot to help you in a medical emergency compared to a paramedic.
The health minister says the move will create a clear pathway for people to become EMRs and paramedics. All right, Riley, and now, as the temperature is starting to dip, those temperatures moving towards that colder below zero.
Yes.
We are waiting to see the waterways really start to ice up, but they're still really dangerously thin in areas that do have ice.
Yeah, places that do have ice, it can be very, very deceiving. It may look like it's good, but it's not. I'm going to talk about ice thickness just for a second, or just for a moment here, just to give you a sense of how thick some of that ice needs to be. I know we've seen some freezing happen in parts of northern Manitoba, some of the higher elevations in the Duck and the Riding Mountains, but it's important to really check that ice and check it well before you venture out onto it. Anywhere in southern Manitoba, probably not thick enough, with some exceptions at this point. So if it's any less than 4 inches, that's a sign to keep it off. You need about 4 to 6 inches, so about a half a foot of ice, if you're going to be doing any ice fishing, for example, on it, and even more if you're going to be taking your snowmobile or your vehicle out. This is the type of ice that we tend to get later into the winter months. So most ice in the province, nowhere near good enough to be venturing out onto quite yet, but certainly check before you go, because things can look like they might be thick enough, but you can really get into trouble in a very quick moment. So just a word of caution as we tend to get some cooler air starting to move into the province. Now looking at what we have on the go. First, we have an area of low pressure now off of northern Quebec. This is still creating a real menacing issue for parts of southern Ontario, which are dealing with a whole lot of lake effect snow. I was talking about some of that into southern Manitoba, but the lake effect snow that parts of Ontario are expecting is up to 70 centimeters in some cases. So quite a bit more south into parts of Ontario. For us, though, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds as we head into Friday. There is a weak disturbance back into Saskatchewan that will slip south of the border, but parts of western Manitoba could get grazed by this as we get through the day tomorrow. Anywhere really south of Swan River, down to Melita, Pearson, into Boissevain. Good chance maybe you get some flurries through the day tomorrow out of some of this cloud cover as the system sinks south. For the rest of us, really, this is just a mix of sun and clouds as we head into the day. Friday into Saturday, a bit of extra cloud cover again hanging around. This is going to be sort of the persistent thing that we're dealing with here over the next few days as high pressure tries to set in and clear us out. But there's a bit of a competition happening here at that low that's off east of us that is keeping some of this cloud cover in place. And in behind all this, we do see this trough in the jet stream really starting to sink a lot further south as we get into the weekend here and into early next week. We're looking at temperatures remaining well below seasonal, waking up tomorrow morning around -10 for parts of southern Manitoba, Brittany, and in the long range temperatures hovering around -10 into early next week as well.
All right, thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
We have much more to come after the break. Stay with us. A Saskatchewan family is raising the alarm over life-threatening delays in accessing vital medical records between that province and Manitoba. A gap in communication that led to devastating consequences the family says were preventable. Scott Larson reports.
Frances Geringer has taken blood thinners since having open heart surgery in 2011. She lives in Creighton, Saskatchewan, just across from the Flin Flon, Manitoba border. To regulate her medication, she gets weekly tests at the Flin Flon General Hospital. The test results are then sent to her family doctor in Saskatoon, and that process can take days. Geringer was last tested on October 27th and was waiting for the results. She's unable to check them herself because they were done in Manitoba. On November 4th, she suffered a stroke. Her daughter Kimberly says that delay meant her mom's medication wasn't adjusted.
That blood work is not accessible to my mom through her e-health because it's done out of province. So therefore, those lab techs have to fax it to my mom's doctor in Saskatoon. We know doctors are busy. She's not going to get to it immediately. And 8 days later, my mom had a massive stroke.
Sautner says the delay is not the fault of her mom's doctor or the medical personnel in Flin Flon. She says the problem is a break in the medical system when it comes to the government and the sharing of important information.
Those records belong to my mom. It's her health. It's her records, and that's why I guess our family struggles with the fact that, you know, it shouldn't matter where you get your blood work done. They should have the access to upload the information.
The nonprofit organization Canadian Institute for Health Information says it's working on a new system to improve data sharing between care providers. Last summer, the federal government introduced Bill C-72, which would have allowed patients to access their personal health information and allow health care providers to share it. But it wasn't passed before the last election and has yet to be reintroduced.
We need to get together and we need to be able to share it. And if you can't, if there's no system that will allow you to share that, then I think that the information needs to be provided to the person while they're there. It's a record that belongs to them. It's their health care. And if not, then print a report and hand it to them.
In the meantime, Geringer continues her recovery in Flin Flon. Sautner says it will be a long road for her mom because the left side of her mother's body is still paralyzed and she sleeps for up to 18 hours a day. Scott Larson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announced a sweeping new energy deal, paving the way for a new pipeline to the West Coast. Kate McKenna has more.
It's so nice to see you. A relationship reset and a sweeping energy deal between two jurisdictions often at odds, Alberta and Canada.
This is Canada working. This is cooperative federalism. This is Canada building with Alberta, building with Canada, building for today, but building very much for the future.
The Prime Minister and Alberta's Premier signed a new Memorandum of Understanding. Ottawa pledges support for a new oil pipeline to the Pacific.
At the core of the agreement, of course, is a priority to have a pipeline to Asia. That's going to make Canada stronger.
He is willing to work with me and Alberta's government to accomplish that shared goal. And that, my friends, is something that we have not seen from a Canadian Prime Minister in over a decade.
In exchange, Alberta will commit to raising its industrial carbon price, lowering methane emissions, and supporting carbon capture and storage.
The people of Alberta have had the rug pulled out from underneath them too many times to count over the past 10 years. I also know that a new relationship and a new beginning needs a starting point grounded in good faith.
Ottawa will also suspend or drop some Trudeau-era environmental regulations, like the emissions cap, clean electricity regulations, and if a pipeline goes ahead, Ottawa would adjust the tanker ban off of BC. But it's not clear if that will ever happen.
If there's not a private sector component, there won't be a pipeline.
The MOU says any pipeline would need to be built by a private company with Indigenous co-ownership, and First Nations in British Columbia will need to be consulted, though they don't have the option of outright rejecting a pipeline.
I think there are wins for everybody, but that can't happen if we're not all at the table together.
Well, you'll see it in the agreement. There's no mention of veto. I think that there obviously has to be trilateral discussions with British Columbia to find areas of common ground.
One person unhappy with this plan is former Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault. He is a lifelong environmental activist, and this afternoon he resigned from cabinet, citing the rolling back of environmental regulations. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, that deal means construction on a pipeline extending to the BC port could start as early as 2029. But for that to happen, private industry has to get involved. Anis Hadari explains.
The energy industry is reacting positively to this news in a general sense, but this isn't cause for major celebrations yet. This is a sector of the economy that has been calling for increased capacity, calling for increased investments, and calling for different regulation in this country for a long time. So seeing movement in those regards from both the Government of Canada and the Government of Alberta is welcomed by the energy industry.
If you asked any of us in this room 12 months ago whether the Prime Minister of Canada would be in Calgary to sign an MOU that will remove regulatory barriers to energy and related infrastructure development, kickstart the largest CCUS project on the planet, and expand our ability to sell to new markets, no one would have taken that bet.
But at this point, no company has put its hand up to say that it will be constructing a pipeline under that deal. And it is a requirement of this deal that a private company step up to do that. Take a listen to the Prime Minister earlier today.
What if there aren't any private sector proponents? You mentioned them there.
Well, if there's not a private sector proponent, there won't be a pipeline.
It's a short but blunt message from Mark Carney that the private sector has to be involved for a pipeline to be constructed.
If there are some guarantees or cost certainty associated with the pipeline project, I think you could see a private sponsor go forward, but that private sponsor is going to need some guarantees around the cost. I mean, I don't think any private sponsor is going to be prepared to just have a blank check associated with this project.
Whether the money flows is a different question. With lower energy prices than in the past, it may not be economical yet to make this deal. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
Authorities in Hong Kong say 94 people have been killed in a massive apartment complex fire. 300 others are still reported missing. Police have arrested 3 men who worked for a construction firm that recently renovated the complex. Laura Westbrook has more.
This is very much an ongoing operation. Firefighters are using water jets, spraying them onto the buildings. Smoke is continuing to pour off some of these buildings, and there are still some small fires that have been ongoing as firefighters are working in some challenging conditions. They say that the temperatures have been very hot, and there is also the risk of scaffolding collapsing. Now, the attention is also turning to the material that was used when these buildings were being renovated. These buildings that make up this housing estate were being renovated at the time of the fire. That's why there is the bamboo scaffolding on the outside of the buildings, as well as some green mesh. And according to footage from eyewitnesses, when this fire started, it spread quickly across those buildings, across that bamboo scaffolding. Authorities now looking at whether some of the materials on the outside of the buildings might not have been up to fire standards. They were also looking at styrofoam that was being used in the renovations. That is very flammable, and that could be one of the reasons why this fire spread so quickly and intensely. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have been evacuated, many of them spending another night in emergency shelters. Volunteers have also rallied here today, passing out food, donating clothes as well to those affected in the area. Laura Westbrook, CBC News, Hong Kong.
An update now on the shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. U.S. officials say the suspect, an Afghan national, planned it as a targeted ambush. The CBC's Karen Pauls has more on what we know so far.
On a day of Thanksgiving, prayers.
Today, as most families join together to give thanks for the blessings that have been bestowed upon them, 2 families are shattered.
20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf ambushed while patrolling near the White House, still in critical condition. Wolf's neighbor in shock.
Best neighbor you could ask for, really. It really caught us off guard.
really close to home.
The suspected shooter identified as 29-year-old Rahmanullah Lochinwal. CIA Director John Radcliffe said in a statement that Lochinwal worked with the CIA in Afghanistan. He was evacuated by the U.S. military after the fall of Kabul in 2021 under a Biden-era program called Operation Allies Welcome and granted asylum under the Trump administration in April.
There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background.
As the investigation continues, the Trump administration signaling charges could be upgraded.
Everyone pray today for these two soldiers, these two guards, the man and woman. But if something happens, we will do everything in our power to seek the death penalty.
The U.S. is now reviewing all asylum cases approved under President Joe Biden and temporarily suspending all immigration requests of Afghan nationals.
We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country.
Afghans didn't commit a crime. One lone deranged gunman committed a crime.
Advocates say the shooting should not be used to punish Afghans in the U.S., and particularly those who were wartime allies.
They undergo more vetting than the U.S. military, than police officers, and certainly more than politicians.
All this amidst division over Donald Trump's use of the National Guard to combat crime in mostly Democratic cities. He's already ordered 500 more troops to D.C. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It's been 1 year since RCMP were outfitted with body-worn cameras. Coming up, we speak with one officer about her experience. That's next. Well, the temperature is starting to drop, and hopefully you've listened to Riley's advice over the last few days. If you've found your extension cord for your block heater, your snow remover, the brush, because boy, oh boy, are you going to need it.
Make sure the toucan mitts are in the car.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe a heavy blanket as well, especially if you're out on the highways for any length of time. Very important. And the booties for the pups.
Yes, exactly.
It's that time of year again. I don't have a dog tonight, but I do have a bunny to show you. It's an 8-year-old bunny. I have just been loving all the pictures you've been sending of your pets. I love the dogs and the cats. They're so cute. But it's so nice to get a bunny once in a while. This is Stripe, who's 8 years old, sent in by Ariel. Thank you so much for sending this picture. I'd love to see all of your pets. Sure, you can send me your dogs and your cats too, but if you got bunnies, if you got fish, if you got turtles, I'll take those too. To talkback@cbc.ca. As always, bonus points if they're in some kind of holiday attire, because we'll need those as we get into December as well. -7 by the afternoon tomorrow. That wind does lighten up, and with that lightening of the wind comes a lower risk of that lake effect snow developing over southern Manitoba again tomorrow. I did want to touch quickly on our snowpack, because this map has started to fill in across Western Canada as we've seen some snow. A lot of this, especially down into Montana and North Dakota, the result of that system that dodged Manitoba earlier this week that is wreaking havoc still on parts of southern Ontario, which I'll show you. I'll give you a look at that in just a moment. But looking a bit closer at our snowpack in Manitoba, very light into the southwest corner of the province. Barely anything, just sort of a trace into parts of the Red River Valley where we've seen some of that lake effect, and a bit healthier. At last check, Churchill had about 10 centimeters on the ground. So there is some snow on the ground in some parts of Manitoba. You got to look for it, but as we get into December, I think we'll start to see that snowpack filling in a little bit more. Quick look at radar into southern Ontario. This is that system that moved through the Dakotas into Minnesota earlier in the week that did bring a dusting of snow to southwestern parts of the province. Now spinning all of this lake effect snow into parts of southern Ontario. And I was talking earlier about the snow squalls, the potential locally of seeing up to 70 centimeters of snow. Yes, that's 70 in some parts of Ontario as we get into the day on Friday. So a lot of snow coming to some parts of our country. Overnight in our province, temperatures -13s, -14s in the west. This is where we do have a bit of clearing that happened today. -11 still in the Red River Valley. Slim chance of a few more flurries as we get through the night tonight. -17 in Thompson. A mostly cloudy sky, some peaks of sunshine as we get through the day. Slim chance of some flurries in the Paw and OCN up to -8 by the afternoon. And in southern Manitoba, we're looking at things, I think, starting a bit brighter tomorrow. High pressure is really going to try to clear us out as we get through the day. Winds do calm down as well. And another weak disturbance starts to push into the parkland. We get -7 in Swan River, maybe a few scattered flurries through Swan River, Dauphin, Roblin through the afternoon, Brittany.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
The RCMP has a long and difficult relationship with Indigenous people and communities. It's often strained, and many don't trust police. For officers who work in First Nations, building relationships takes a lot of work and can be a struggle. As you heard earlier, 98% of frontline RCMP officers are now outfitted with body-worn cameras. I spoke with one officer who spent years in Shamattawa, and she says these cameras are making a difference. Corporal Hewlin, you've been wearing your body-worn camera since about July. Tell me a little bit about the experience that you've had primarily up in Shamattawa.
So it has been extremely positive for me. I was looking forward to this rollout happening and receiving my body camera. Immediately upon wearing it, I noticed a huge shift, not only dealing with our clients in the community, but also within my investigations, like being able to upload the video, how I prepare for a court package. It's been a very smooth process and so beneficial for frontline officers to have that in their back pocket now as another investigational tool.
There's a lot of distrust when it comes to police, especially in many First Nations communities. When you started wearing that, how did you really see that impact the relationships you had with people when you were going on a call?
Honestly, I feel like the relationship has gotten a lot more positive. When I interacted with some people, it would take a lot of convincing or de-escalation to gain compliance or to even build trust with somebody. And I have a good relationship with most people in the community, which it takes time to build anyway. But when you're dealing with violent confrontations, it's almost like this physical cue of a red light now changes the behavior. It almost like prevents them from taking another action. It changes the mindset. They see it, they're like, oh my goodness, okay, now this is different, like what's happening? and it almost makes them take a step back and think about what they're doing first, which has been extremely helpful, like especially when you say verbally as well, like, hi, I'm Corporal Janelle Hewlin. Just so you know, this is my body-worn camera and it's activated right now and recording our interaction. And that also changes the behavior. But ever since I've been wearing it, just even having a conversation has become more respectful. Like there's a lot less swearing at us, there's a lot less threatening. It's almost brought an awareness that, you know, it's no longer just, you know, you versus me. This is going to be a transparency thing now. Like everybody, if you need to, you know, have accountability, will now know what our conversation was. It's not just going to be between me and you now, right? So it's been really good in Shamattawa, to be quite honest.
Can you talk to me about some of the situations that you've been in where you've seen that de-escalation, or where this has been maybe a lifesaver for you, going, I've got this on tape now. It doesn't just have to be my word. Something that you could explain to us that people would understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had an ongoing domestic violence situation, which was starting to escalate. And the person had sought shelter in somebody's residence. They weren't cooperative with police, so I had to obtain a Feeney warrant. And originally, upon trying to gain entry to the residence, it was a violent confrontation. But once we had the body cameras come around and we had to go back to that residence, the occupant or the owner of the residence, it was like a 360 change, like literally a whole turnaround of like, yep, I understand what you're saying, I will move back. So we were able to get in there and arrest the individual. And I had my partner with me, but it helps because there was family members in the residence who didn't agree with the arrest. But as you put the body camera side by side, because they sync with each other, and if you were an outside person watching back, you can see what's happening behind me as I'm completing the arrest, and you can also see what I'm doing during the arrest. So it's almost like a fly on the wall view that you wouldn't have at any other time. But even just being able to safely enter the residence versus having a fight right from the start, that's a real life example of how just this little camera with a red light has now changed someone's mindset of, okay, you know, this is a different situation now. So it's been really effective for me. And there's been times in the community where, you know, a community member raises a concern and it's our word against theirs, and we try to explain the situation. It's a good relationship. But now having this, it's like, hey, if you want to see some extra video footage, we have this available for you. And I think once that situation arises, it's going to be so helpful for chief and council as well, because they have to deal with a whole community just like we do. So they have so much on their plate, and expediting the process of just being like, hey, this isolated incident, I have a snippet of video for you as if you were there, now changes versus let me tell you what happened from the start. Let me tell you the whole story, give you some details. The video just is like a movie. It just helps you have that quick understanding of what actually did occur.
You're somebody that had been in that community for a number of years, but have you seen it change with an officer that's maybe coming in new to the community? Is there an automatic trust that comes with it? Does it help build that relationship faster?
I do think it's still, you know, on each individual officer to build trust with the community, to form that rapport and professional relationship. However, I do think having the body camera gives the public a sense of peace of mind and, you know, comfort in knowing that the officer is equally going to be accountable. Like, hey, I don't know you, you don't know me, but now we both have this, you know, this entity that's not one-sided that can keep us both accountable and keep us safe. And it has happened where we had a brand new member come to Shamattawa right from depot, no experience with reserves in Manitoba, and even he said, like, you know, this makes me feel safer. And I've had a couple of clients say to me, like, hey, I don't know you, but like, I like that you have that, right? And even just that comment, it's kind of like, wow, that's such a good thing to hear, because even though they may not trust you yet because you're brand new to the community, they now have this little device saying, you know, like, this is actually pretty good for me and you. And they find that positivity.
They know you probably don't have the statistics on you or readily available, but have you guys seen in that community, has it impacted crime levels?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the officers, ever since the change to a fly-in, we've seen a really good rapport with the community where the officers are able to get a lot of rest and become fresh and go back to the community with a really refreshed positivity. And ever since the cameras came in, like even some of our really difficult clients have become way more receptive to us. They've been a lot easier to deal with, and it makes our life, like I was saying earlier, like 15 to 30 minutes of de-escalation has now turned into like 5 minutes. And it really just helps us as we're going through the process of an investigation to be like, hey, we just want to get this done, please work with us. And you know what, like some of our most difficult clients are just like, yeah, no problem, and they get it done.
Still ahead, getting ready for one of the biggest shopping seasons, but where are you putting your money? More on that coming up next.
All right, welcome back. Thought I'd give you a quick look at radar once again before we leave you, because we are seeing some very light precipitation from some of that lake effect flurry activity that's popped up through the afternoon hours. Once again, not totally unexpected if you get a bit of a dusting of snow through the night tonight. Slim chance of maybe some of that into the early morning. Then we're back into a mix of sun and clouds as we get through the rest of Friday into Saturday, -7. Bit of extra cloud starts to build back in again, but I think we are a bit sunnier into Sunday. But the temperatures from there start to slide. -11 into Sunday, -9 into Monday. Then we're minus double digits as we head toward the end of next week. And overnight temperatures the next 7 days now, all in the minus double digits and close to -20 there for next Thursday. Ooh, the seasons are changing. Well, are you getting ready to shop till you drop this Black Friday? And where are you planning on putting your money?
I have a few places. Maybe online, or are you focused on buying Canadian? We asked Manitobans how they plan to spend.
Yes, I'll be going to McNally Robson to get them not only gift cards, but I've got book ideas. And they got everything there. They got music, they got, toys, they've got everything. There's a lot of craft sales going on right now, so you can get everything here without even leaving the city. Without even driving, you could, it's great.
Definitely would prefer to buy local this Christmas, just to support the community. But of course, there's lots of inflation and stuff going on, so it'd be best to buy affordable things.
Okay, so what are some of the items that you're thinking of purchasing locally, and for who?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm planning on going to craft stores, homemade crafts, like going to the bazaars or whatever they're
craft markets.
Yeah, craft markets. That's the word I wanted.
And you got to support local businesses, but I mean, at the same time, when you got those big Amazon deals, a Black Friday coming around. I mean, I think we're lucky in Canada now that we got Black Friday here. But yes, I'll be trying to buy as much local as I can.
My family likes to drink a lot, so I like to buy them alcohol. So it's obviously a lot cheaper to go to the LC to buy liquors and stuff like that than buying local.
I like the honesty.
I was just going to say the same thing. I did some of my shopping at one of the craft fairs the other weekend. Maybe a little extra shopping for myself this holiday season.
That works too.
But hey, you still got time.
Yeah.
Right?
I have to start yet.
All right.
So I'll get on that.
We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.